You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Past episodes of the Authentic Business Adventures program can be found in the podcast link at drawInCustomers.com. We are coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Radio Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. Today, we are welcoming / preparing to learn from David Benjamin, author of The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked, as well as, is it 6 other books, David? I'm sorry, Benjamin? Six. There we go. That's a ton. As well as publisher at The Last Kid Picked. So, Benjamin, how are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm feeling fine. The publishing imprint, to be correct, is Last Kid Books.
Last Kid Books. I apologize. I was going off the website there. Yeah. Last Kid Books. Awesome. Let me make a note of that. So you have been an author of a ton of books from, I guess I've written a couple, but that was a lot of work, and I see you're a multiplier of mine.
Yes, I've been writing ever since. I started my first novel in 2nd grade.
Oh, wow.
Actually,
okay.
Actually, 3rd grade, yes.
Did that one get published?
Are you kidding?
Maybe. I don't know. I've seen some crazy stuff out there.
No, what you write in 3rd and 4th grade is not something you necessarily want to continue, want to be exposed when you get to be a grown-up.
Sure, that's fair. Let me pause you right there, though, because my son, he's a 5-year-old kid, and he watches these videos on YouTube of kids opening up packages of toys. Mm-hmm. They're called blind bags, and I didn't know these things existed. But he's watching this video and he's all excited, right? And it's this kid. All you see is the hands unwrapping. They're just unwrapping this bag. It could be like a candy bar. Mm-hmm. And there's some toy, and then they pretend to play with the toy. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. Why would anyone watch this? Why would anyone make this? And then I look, and there's 34 million views on this one video. And I'm just like, okay, clearly I'm not the one to decide what gets and does not get out into the world of content. So if someone wants to publish a novel from 2nd grade, man,
I would still recommend against it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
And what you're talking about really is what you might call eye candy.
Sure.
And eye candy is very easy to consume.
Sure.
Good writing is harder.
Fair. Totally fair. Yeah, there's an intelligence prerequisite for
you do
writing.
Good writing too.
Sure.
And you don't have 34 million.
No. No, it's weird. I used to put out a ton of videos online for businessy stuff and all this jazz, and I'd be lucky if I had 50 views.
Yeah.
And apparently not that many people are looking for it versus the number of people that want to watch somebody else open up a toy. But I'm like, 34 million, that's essentially 8% of the country's population.
About 10%, actually.
10%, okay.
Yeah, right,
so that's insane. That 1 in 10 people, presuming that we only watched it once, every time you walk down the street, 1 in 10 people have seen this crazy video of somebody opening a toy.
Of course, but we have to distinguish. My wife does technology, okay?
All right.
And you have to distinguish between the click
Sure.
and the view.
Sure.
Yeah, and you get an awful lot of clicks where people just don't, they just go on, they click on to something else.
This was views.
This was views.
Yeah. By YouTube's measurement, I didn't verify them or anything. Let me check on these 34 million really quick or whatever it is. Craziness. So let's get back to your books, your writing life. How long have you been professionally writing?
I've been, I would say, officially professional, well, ever since I was in college, really, because I was working as a journalist for Beloit College.
Oh, really?
As a sports information assistant to
Sure.
the publicity director.
Okay.
And in that capacity, I started doing stringing for newspapers.
Sure.
Around Beloit.
Okay.
The Beloit Daily News and the Rockford Morning Star.
Sure.
I've been a journalist ever since then.
Oh, wow. All right.
But my real vocation is storyteller.
Okay.
Novelist.
Sure.
But I'm an essayist, I'm a novelist, I'm a journalist.
Sure.
Anybody who's been writing since grade school.
Sure.
And sees his or her calling.
Sure.
Or vocation as writing ends up doing every kind of writing you can possibly do.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you've made a living out of this for a while?
A living. Nobody goes into writing to make a living.
They still make them, right?
As a journalist, I made a living.
Okay.
I still do a certain amount of journalism.
Sure.
My wife is a journalist, and so I assist her when she travels to two of the largest electronics trade shows in the world.
Okay.
The Consumer Electronics Show
Sure.
in Las Vegas.
In Vegas, yeah,
and
yeah.
Mobile World Congress, which is coming up at the end of this month
Mm-hmm.
in Barcelona.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That should be fun.
Oh, it usually is. Barcelona's fun.
Yeah.
The show, not so much.
No, it's just all these gadgets everywhere.
It's it's a if you've been to trade shows,
I have.
They're madhouses. They're a lot of people pushing stuff.
Sure.
A lot of stuff that's not going to ever last very long.
Sure.
And and the hotels are full, the restaurants are full. You can't get a taxi.
Sure.
It's if you're really really deep into that stuff,
Mm-hmm.
you can enjoy it. Otherwise, you just kind of slog through it.
Sure.
And survive.
I'm usually on the other side of the table where I'm hoping that it's a madhouse because
Right.
you paid a lot of money to be there and you
Right.
don't want crickets, so
Right.
you
Yeah.
need
No,
some
no,
people.
no. I understand. But as a journalist,
Yeah.
it's a big chore.
Sure.
Because everybody's tugging.
Sure.
Not so much at me, but at my wife.
Right.
To get her attention.
Sure.
And to like people like you on the other side of the table
Mm-hmm.
are out to get her.
Where it's a room full of hustlers, right?
Yeah.
So I mean that's the name of the game, right?
Hustlers and nerds. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to talk to people. You got to talk to people. If you don't talk to people, what are you doing here?
Right. Yeah.
So that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me about your books? You got a pile of them there.
Right.
We got some varied names. We got fiction. We got nonfiction.
Well, I'll give you a quick, I hope,
Sure.
summary of my enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
My agent, my literary agent, Jack Scoville, who was a wonderful man, died in 2012.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And after that, it was incumbent upon me to either find an agent or a publisher. At my age and in my location,
Yeah.
getting a New York agent or a New York publisher to pay attention to you is a difficult proposition. I spent a long time doing that.
Okay.
I understand how the system works.
Mm-hmm.
They're always looking for somebody who's fresh and new, and they're always looking for somebody who occupies a niche.
Okay.
I write across every possible genre.
Sure.
I don't have a niche.
Okay.
And I am older than the average young author
Sure.
by a few years, as you can
Far as you know, right?
as you can tell.
Sure.
So I did get 2 books published with a small publisher in Albuquerque,
Okay.
Event Horizon Press.
Okay.
But that option died simply because my publisher retired.
Oh.
And the 2 books I got published they're excellent books. One is called A Sunday Kind of Love, and
Okay.
the other is called Three's a Crowd.
Okay.
Three's a Crowd is a murder mystery that begins at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas.
Oh, interesting.
A Sunday Kind of Love is a chronicle of a woman who falls in love with her boss, and she's in Madison.
Okay.
But her boss is in love with the Green Bay Packers, and particularly Brett Favre.
Okay.
Takes place during the 2009 Packer season,
Okay.
which was the second season of Aaron Rodgers,
Sure.
and the first season of Brett Favre playing for Minnesota.
Okay.
So the tortured romance among the woman, the man, and Brett Favre and the Packers is
Sure.
is the central idea in the book.
Gotcha.
I call it a football romance.
Okay. All right.
Both of those books now are going to be.
If that isn't a tight niche, I don't know what
Right.
is.
We can talk forever about why sports novels are not one of the major genres in
Sure.
in American fiction. We could talk.
I got some rough guesses.
We could talk about that forever, but
Sure.
But that's not the issue here today.
Sure.
So when Joseph, my publisher, retired,
Mm-hmm.
I was again without a way to get my stories out.
Sure.
And I had a conversation with one of my friends in Paris. He's a bookseller.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Brian Spence. He runs the Abbey Bookshop in Paris. And anybody who goes to Paris, I recommend that you visit there.
Mm-hmm.
And he had been talking to me about self-publishing for a long time. I
Okay.
don't really believe in self-publishing. I see it as a exercise in vanity.
Okay.
That doesn't make any money. That it's not really a business.
Okay.
But in the conversation,
No, you're talking 2012 when you're having this conversation?
No,
with
I'm
them?
having this conversation last year.
More. Oh, really recently?
Yeah,
Okay.
last February, just about a year ago. And in the conversation, what emerged more in my mind than in Brian's mind was rather than self-publish a book, start a publishing enterprise.
Okay.
And to distinguish oneself from the vanity press and the self-publishing genre, to hit the market with 3 books at once.
Okay.
And I have more than 15 titles that have accumulated over the years. I write a book a year.
That have been published?
That are waiting to be published.
Waiting to be published, hanging out on the hard drive somewhere.
Yeah, that I sent to my agent Jack, and he pitched them to various publishers.
Sure.
And I'm a complicated writer.
Okay.
I'm not inaccessible.
Sure.
But I'm very eclectic, and I have a kind of a literary bent rather than it's hard for me to characterize myself,
Sure. Sure.
I'm
the irony of a writer.
I'm from Wisconsin. I'm fundamentally modest.
Sure.
So the fact that Jack didn't sell my books to publishers doesn't reflect that much on the quality of my writing. It reflects more on the difficulty of acquisitions, people, and publishing companies to identify my niche.
So it's interesting you say that.
Yeah.
I don't know, grade school. I don't even remember when, but I do remember the moment. We had an author come in. I was, just grade school, right? Young kid. Author came in, and he's telling us about being an author, blah, 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 blah. And then a kid, of course, raised his hand. And the kid asks, is it tough to become a writer? And the guy went into this tirade about how it's terribly hard to become a writer because he said that this was late 80s, way early 90s.
Yeah.
Guess I'm dating myself there, but
right.
way before internet.
Right. Yeah. The book racket hasn't changed that much since the 90s. So 80s.
So
yeah. Right.
He was saying that he put half of his book, like he had to send a physical copy to the publisher. He put half of it upside down just to see if anyone would notice.
Right.
And of course nobody did.
Right.
Or nobody said anything. So he's like, you're sending stuff in this black hole.
Yes.
And he believed that he was lucky enough to get chosen. But it just from that moment on, I was like, well, I guess I'm not going to be a writer.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that's terrible. I got this advice when I was in grade school, whatever, which is terrible advice.
Yeah, you have to ignore that. The fundamental reality of being a writer is rejection.
Sure.
I have probably had more than 1,000 rejections. In my life. If you take that sort of rejection, and I have a similar anecdote.
Okay.
In the 80s and 90s, before you had electronic submission to publishers and agents, you sent hard copy, and it was 10 pages, 30 pages, 50 pages.
Sure.
And what I would usually do, just to see, because they would send it back, I would make sure that there was an envelope for them to send it back.
Okay.
I'd turn over the second page.
Okay.
Not the second half, the second page.
Oh, gotcha.
Right. And most of them came back with the second page still turned over.
All right.
Which means they hadn't even looked at it.
Sure.
Yeah, and it didn't go to the person you sent it to. It went to a gatekeeper.
Sure.
Which is very likely some postgraduate intern from Sarah Lawrence, who was prejudiced against whatever you were.
Sure. Right.
White or male or something.
Sure.
And wasn't even interested in. It was just basically her job was to take manuscripts or pieces of manuscripts.
Sure.
And put them in the envelope and send them back without looking at them.
All right.
Yeah.
So the secret is to put a $100 bill somewhere in the middle there.
The point is that sort of rejection has no value whatsoever.
Sure.
It means nothing.
Sure.
And I suspect that the author you talked to did not point that out to you.
Yeah, we were a group of grade school kids. So even if he did, it would have went right over our heads.
So anyway, notwithstanding all the rejection, you have to believe in yourself. And,
Well, absolutely.
and
Just like with
yeah,
any business
yeah,
owner, right?
Right. And I always have, at least in my writing. I have qualms about most of my character, but
Sure.
But at least my writing, I'm pretty sure about. So
Sure, fair.
So I made a selection of 3 books, based partly on one of them is a book of essays called "Almost Killed by a Train of Thought."
Okay.
It's basically I write an essay a week. It's a habit that I developed when I started working in newspapers in the 70s, and
Okay.
I've kept it up. I've written probably 2,000 essays now.
That's quite a few. All right.
Yes, this is a collection of 70 essays, ranging from among all the things I write about, which includes technology and journalism and travel
Sure.
and politics
Okay.
and life in general.
Okay.
This was begun by my previous publisher, Event Horizon Press, but that's when my publisher retired.
Sure.
The other 2 are Summer of '68.
Okay.
Which is a sort of a continuation of the character from the life and times of The Last Kid Picked.
Okay.
In The Last Kid Picked, he's a grade schooler. In Summer of '68, he's just out of high school, 1968. He's working at his name now is his name changed from my name to Franklin Roosevelt Cribbs.
Okay.
Otherwise known as Cribbsy.
Okay.
Cribbsy is a counselor at an art and music camp in East Troy, Wisconsin.
Okay.
The art and music camp is based on Hull House Camp out of Chicago, which is where I worked in one summer after my freshman year of college.
Okay.
And this is based on that experience. And this, of course, if anybody remembers, '68 was probably the most traumatic summer, at least in the second half of the 20th.
Sure, from Vietnam and racial stuff and all that jazz.
Martin Luther King was killed that year.
Sure.
Bobby Kennedy was killed that year.
Okay.
It was the year of the Prague Spring. It was the year of the riots in Paris. It was the year of a number of riots in Washington, D.C. and so forth.
Sure.
It was the year Andy Warhol was shot for some reason.
Okay.
And the amount of racial tension and social tension that existed at that time
Sure.
is like what we feel today, but probably more intense even then. And
Sure.
And here you have a dumb white kid from Madison going in to become a counselor in a camp that is populated by all the different ethnic groups and racial groups and religious groups and social groups that existed in Chicago.
Okay.
And the climax of the book is, of course, the Democratic Convention in Chicago, which was probably the greatest police riot in the history of America.
Okay.
So this is all about his coming of age suddenly in what seems to be a perfectly bucolic setting.
Sure.
But he's actually in the heart of Chicago the whole time.
Gotcha. Okay.
The third book is Skullduggery in the Latin Quarter.
Okay.
It takes place in Paris.
All right.
It's a comic murder story.
Okay.
Which ranges all the way across Paris and involves lively, funny characters. Most of my books tend to have a humorous element, which is also one of my marketing problems.
Sure.
New York publishers don't like humor. They don't know what to do with it.
That's funny. Okay.
But it's actually one of my wife's favorites. I had a friend who reads my manuscripts. His name is Gaylord Plummer. He lives in Madison. And when he visited us in Paris, he used Skullduggery in the Latin Quarter as his travel guide around Paris, because it covers the city from Montmartre way in the north to all the way down to Montparnasse, which is pretty far south in Paris.
Nice.
Yeah.
Huh. So that's interesting. Now you started your own publishing. What did you call it? You didn't call it a publishing company. I'm sorry.
I called it an imprint. Yes.
Imprint.
But
so
that's just publishing ease for company. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to tell me a story here, because I'm an author and I'm self-published, so I'm one of the evil people, but that's okay. I've been called worse.
A couple of years, I might have room to add you to my imprint.
So when I first started looking at publishing my book, self-publishing was kind of, I guess I would still say it's almost in its infancy for real self-publishing. When I say real, I mean like you just send your manuscript and it's up there.
Yeah, that's called book packaging, right? Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I got to get a publisher. How do I get a publisher? And looking online, trying to figure this out, they say, oh, you got to get a, oh my gosh, my brain just died here. The guy that you mentioned that retired.
Oh, an agent.
An agent.
Yes.
Yes. So you have to sell your agent, and then your agent is then going to sell your book to a publisher.
Right. Yeah.
And I thought, well, that seems like an awful lot of moving parts, just to get a book physically published and out there. So then I thought, oh, there's 3 publishing companies or something like that I know. You got your Random House, and you got your other ones that you can name that kind of
HarperCollins, Simon and Schuster.
Yeah, the typical ones that people would recognize.
Yeah,
but then I learned that there's actually 5 billion publishing companies.
Yes. Well, there are actually a fairly small number of major publishers who have a lot of imprints, which are sub companies of the big ones.
Okay.
For instance, Random House, where everybody knows Random House.
Sure.
They have they're now Penguin Random House, so that Penguin and Random House are merged, and there are probably and Penguin probably has a dozen imprints, and Random House probably has more than a dozen imprints.
Okay.
So it's under the aegis of Random House and Penguin, but there are these subgenres that are often specific to types of books.
Okay. So do the agents work for the publishers?
Agents are independent.
Agents are on their own, and they're just feeding your book to whatever publisher they feel would be the best fit.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what does a publisher do besides physically printing the book?
It used to the real thing that publishers do besides physically printing the book, which you can have done at your local job press if you want to, is marketing.
Okay.
They have representatives who go to bookstores. They market online. They do advertising. They make sure that you get reviewed. Getting reviewed is a critical element in
it's one of the toughest things. Yeah, I think it was easier to write the book
it's very
than
tough,
to get reviewed.
Very tough to get reviewed, yes, especially by a legitimate reviewer.
Any reviewer.
Yeah.
It's just someone with a keyboard.
Yeah, there are a lot
that presumably has read the book.
Right. You can't count on that.
No. Turns out.
But you're right. The complications of getting a book published through legitimate means rather than self-publishing are tremendous. Your chances of success are much better. They're the idea of getting a book that sells enough to sell out the first printing. Which is what the Last Kid Picked did. It's probably in the 30% range.
So when you say sell out, like I come from the self-publishing world where it's just print on demand. You order it, then it gets printed.
Right.
It's in the mail the same day.
Right.
Maybe the next day.
Right.
You had an allotment of 10,000, 50,000, something like that.
Each printing was about 10,000.
10,000. Okay. Yeah. So. What was the publishing company? Was that Random House?
That was Random House.
Okay,
yes.
So Random House ran 10,000 copies. They're like, okay, we got 10,000 copies.
They did 10,000 in hardcover, 10,000 in paperback.
Okay.
Both of them sold out. They were not remaindered, which means remaindering is the books they don't sell. They auction them or they sell them off to a third party, and that third party sells them at a discount.
Okay. They end up at some other store.
Yeah.
The discount store or whatever.
Or else they just get shredded.
Okay.
But I managed to sell them out, and
nice.
And there's still that's about that happens to about 30%.
Okay.
To become a bestseller is maybe it's in the 5% range.
Okay.
But if you're self-publishing, the chances of having successful sales is somewhere in the single digits below 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So, define successful sales there.
Make a profit.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, high five me because I'm in 5% there. I'm making a profit every month.
Okay, right.
Yeah. It's about enough to pay a cable bill, but it's still a profit.
But you're also in a category that's much more saleable than fiction.
I like to think so.
You're a nonfiction business author. And,
absolutely.
And that's a very strong niche.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I didn't know that at the time. But
if you were like an economics textbook,
I'd have to teach at a college to sell books, right?
But you'd be rich.
Sure.
Yeah. because that especially if it's required.
Sure.
At a major university, because right. First of all, the book is going to be priced around $50.
Yeah.
Or more.
Yeah.
And it's going to be required reading for 300 or 400 students.
Right. Right.
Is that me?
I have no idea, but let's just pretend it doesn't happen.
Let's pretend the phone is not ringing.
So in the case of, I guess I've had professors where they said you have to buy this book. It's required reading.
The best way to make money on books is to publish a textbook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I have to start some classes.
Or to be Stephen King.
Sure.
Okay. But let me explain what. The difference between self-publishing, which is what you just described, and what I've done. I started an imprint.
Okay.
Which means that I had to first of all get a book designer.
Okay.
My book designer is Kristen Mitchell.
Okay. You're talking about interior or exterior?
She's in Mineral Point, Wisconsin. She has an outfit called Little Creek Press.
I've heard of Little Creek, sure.
Sure. And she packages books for self-published authors.
Okay.
But she also designs books for authors who are not technically self-published.
Sure.
When I got in touch with her, we had a very quick bond, and she agreed to design my books.
Okay.
My previous publisher at Joseph Coles at Event Horizon Press was a hell of a good was a heck of a good book designer.
Sure.
And she's very good also.
Okay.
And you can see the look of these books.
Sure.
Is very nice.
Sure. Yeah. I'm holding up Summer of '68 for all you people that are imagining us in the studio here.
Yeah.
That's a solid book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
I insisted on really high quality design and really high quality printing.
Sure.
So I needed a printer. She connected me with Park Printing in Verona, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Now I already had an illustrator.
Okay.
For the illustrator for this.
Sure.
Who also designed my logo is someone I worked with in Tokyo named Greg Holfeld.
Okay.
He runs an animation and art and commercial art company in Australia called Panic Productions.
Okay.
And he's just a great illustrator.
Sure.
Besides that, I need a distributor. The fundamental, most important thing that any publisher needs is a distributor.
Okay.
Because who distributes your book determines where the book goes.
Okay.
One of the problems I had with my previous publisher, Event Horizon Press, was that they had their books printed by CreateSpace, which is print on demand.
Sure.
But CreateSpace is affiliated with Amazon.
Very much so.
Every book printed by CreateSpace or published by Amazon is blacklisted in every bookseller in America, including Barnes & Noble.
Really?
Because they're having a war with Amazon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I had to make sure that my distributor was affiliated with the other giant distributor in
Ingram
America,
Spark,
which is called Ingram.
Okay.
Ingram Spark is the print on demand wing.
Sure.
Of Ingram.
Okay.
But I was having my books printed by Park Printing because I wanted higher quality.
Sure. Okay.
So you needed a distributor. You need a printer. You need a book designer. You need illustrators.
Sure.
I have a videographer, Michael Raymond, of Imagine Productions in Oshkosh, Wisconsin.
Okay.
I have. Let's see, what else do I have?
Editors.
You contacted Sharon Alden, who is my publicist.
Sure.
All those elements.
To be fair, she contacted me, but it doesn't matter. Right.
She
potato.
She contacts everybody.
Right.
And then there are all the contacts with, for instance, I'll be holding an event at Mystery to Me Books in Madison on Monroe Street on the April 12th.
Okay.
And I've known Joanne Berg, who runs Mystery to Me, for years now.
Is it a bookstore?
Yeah, it's a bookstore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Look at me not knowing much about the city.
Right. Yeah. Right. So you have to have these connections, and you have to spend. You have to incorporate.
Sure.
You have to make sure that you have a contact with. That you have to get your ISBN numbers, the international some standard book number.
Sure.
You have to make sure
some fancy number that costs a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, it's not that expensive. It's a few hundred.
Considering it's a number,
It's a few
I
hundred.
feel like it's a lot of money.
Right, yeah. And you have to get in touch with the Library of Congress
Sure.
and get a PCN number from them.
Yep.
Just little details along the way. Some of them expensive, some of them
I've done all this stuff.
absolutely free. But the whole key is distribution.
Sure.
And it's funny. I thought getting a distributor affiliated with Ingram would be easy. There were probably 50 small distributors who are kind of affiliated with Ingram.
Okay.
And I got in touch with a couple of them, and they were actually fussy with me.
Fussy. How so?
It's as though they have literary pretensions.
Okay.
We're talking about warehouses here.
Sure.
Yeah, but they don't want to associate with a bookseller with an imprint that might not be a big seller
Okay.
or might not have prestige.
Sure.
So they make you jump through a lot of hoops. So after a couple of tries, I called up an outfit in New Hampshire called Pathway Book Service, and George answered. And George, I told George a little bit of what I was doing, and George said, "I completely understand. We have a great deal of empathy with people like you."
Sure.
And well, I went. I obviously signed up with Pathway.
Sure.
And I actually flew out to Boston, saw some old friends.
Okay.
Drove up to New Hampshire, met George and and John and the whole gang at Pathway Book Service. It's a small book distributor that's been in business for 30 years, a family company.
Okay.
Very nice people.
Okay.
And basically, it's the kind of place that a Wisconsin publisher wants to associate with.
Sure.
Because they have the same kind of small business outlook that I have, and that
Okay.
that every small publisher really wants to deal with.
Sure.
Yeah.
So they distribute the books for you?
They're printed in Verona. They're sent to they're sent to Pathway,
Okay.
and then Pathway has connections with Amazon, Barnes and Noble, every European, every Australian online provider.
Okay.
And they will send individual books. But if, for instance, if somebody wants a copy of Almost Killed by a Train of Thought, right? It's not officially released. For instance, on Amazon until April 1st.
Okay.
But if you go to my website, www.lastkidbooks.com,
Okay.
you can hit the title, and George and the guys at Pathway will send the book directly to you.
So the book will be coming from New Hampshire
Right.
after being printed in Verona.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And one or two of them were written in Paris and Tokyo, so you can.
Okay, we're covering the world
You can
here.
add mileage if you want.
the distributor does not market the book.
No,
They just
no.
deliver. They distribute. They
Right.
literally distribute the book.
But if you don't have that distributor,
Sure.
You basically don't have a pipeline.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So why would you
But
use?
they also supply to bookstores, and they also supply to by way of Amazon and
Okay.
Barnes and Noble and so forth. Yeah.
So why would you use a printer and a distributor instead of just something like Ingram Spark, where you're doing print on demand? Like, what can you tell me about pro con?
Absolutely no control whatsoever.
No control with for the self publish or for the print on demand. No control over.
I actually have a contract with Ingram Spark, but I don't use it.
Okay. Okay.
I think the thing with me is that I've spent a lot of time in printing presses all my life.
Okay.
And,
Okay.
The price per book. For instance, I'm printing 1,000 books at once.
Nice. Okay.
And the price per book I haven't compared Ingram Spark's price with Park Printing's price.
Sure.
But I think they're comparable.
Probably. Sure.
But with Park
Same
Printing,
trees, right?
yeah, right. But with Park Printing, I can drive over, pick up copies of the book, talk for a half hour with Joyce,
Sure.
fuss around with details, make sure that every I is dotted and every T is crossed.
Sure.
It's working personally rather than with a subsidiary of a giant corporation.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't think it adds a whole lot of cost, but it has a great deal of intimacy.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm still what I would consider to be new in the author / self-publishing world, and I certainly don't know everything because I've not devoted
Right.
a crazy amount of time to it
Yeah.
because I have other businesses and stuff
Look,
like that.
look, being a writer,
Mm-hmm.
the last thing you want to know is even the first thing about the book business. All you want to do is write.
I would disagree with that in my realm because I'm curious about any business. So
Right.
it was interesting to see from the publishing standpoint with the agents and the publishers and all that jazz. I'm like, this seems like an outdated model for the technology that we have right now.
Trust me, Thomas Wolfe who
Okay.
did not know dick about the publishing industry.
Okay.
He just sat at his typewriter and pumped out word after word after thousands of words.
Sure.
He didn't know and he didn't care.
Okay.
That's the ideal situation for a writer.
Sure.
Your writing is your focus.
Sure.
So by losing my agent and getting cast out into the wilderness, I ended up learning way more about publishing
Than you wanted to?
than any writer, any sensible writer wants to know.
Sure.
But this prepared me for being able to start my own imprint.
Okay.
I already knew what a lot of my obstacles were going to
Sure.
be, and I already knew the chances of success.
Sure.
But which is probably why I should explain my marketing strategy.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Yeah.
I obviously I need to reach out as much as possible.
Okay.
That's why I hired a publicist. And
Sure.
That's why I'm doing as many events as I can.
Sure.
But the thing that I'm looking for is essentially a matter of scale.
Okay.
As I said, self-published authors, they publish a certain number of books, or they do it on demand, which means they don't publish any particular number at all.
Whatever people order.
Right. Yeah. But it's one title at a time.
Sure.
To distinguish myself from self-published authors, I decided to start with 3 books at once.
Okay.
I had the books; they were ready to go, so immediately I'm flooding the market with titles.
Okay.
As I said, I've got these 5 titles right now that are going to be available in April, and before the end of the year, I'll have 2 more titles.
Nice. Okay.
So in the first year
Sure.
of existence, Last Kid Books will have at least 7 titles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from a marketing standpoint, how will you tell the world about them?
Part of it will be, as many events as I can do.
Okay.
Part of it will be,
Just to clarify, you're talking about writing events, or
right,
are they
where I go and talk to people, meet
Okay.
people.
book signings and stuff like that?
Book signings and things like that.
Okay.
Things like this.
Okay, sure.
Getting media time.
Best business podcast in the world.
But the thing that what I'm looking for, and I'm not sure if this is possible. This is
Sure.
my big business gamble, I guess, is virality.
Okay.
If you have one title on Amazon, that's good. If you have 7 titles on Amazon, and you get people to go to look at one of them in some way or another, you get mentioned.
Sure.
Yeah. You get if you have 7 books on Amazon, you get a lot of Amazon reviews.
Sure.
And those might trigger reviews from newspapers or magazines or
Sure.
online reviewers, serious, legitimate ones. The more product you have in the market, the more likely you are to build to the point where you have a bestseller.
Sure.
And that's really, that's every writer understands that he's writing into the void. That the only status that you can get is not a good seller or not a seller, but a bestseller.
Yes.
And when you have a bestseller, then suddenly everybody pays attention.
Sure.
And you're established.
From a sales point of view, that is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. It's
Very true.
there's no commodification in books for an author. Well, actually, Stephen King is a commodity now.
Sure. Right.
Yeah, but because all of his books become bestsellers.
Right.
And that's really what commodification is all about in publishing.
Sure.
It's when one author becomes a consistent bestseller just because of the name.
Sure.
So the secret to or what I'm trying to do in marketing is to make my name so prevalent that I at least have the potential
Sure.
to have a bestseller.
Okay.
And if not have a bestseller, at least start making a profit
Sure.
from the outlay that I'm putting out in the first couple of years.
Sure. So how would you measure bestseller? Are you talking strictly New York Times bestseller? Or are you talking X number of copies in a genre? Or
Well, right now, there are two bestseller lists. One is the Amazon bestseller list, and the other is the New York Times.
sure.
Yeah, there are others but they aren't that relevant.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Right.
No, that's just a clarification of the goal. That's
Yeah.
all.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
There are subgenres of bestsellers, and I would probably accept any one of them.
Sure.
To be for instance, the Forbes magazine bestseller.
Sure.
If there is such a thing.
No idea, but there should be.
More
right?
like what you're shooting for than what I'm
Right.
shooting for. But but if I make the Forbes bestseller list, I'm happy. You know?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's a step up. That's a step toward the Amazon bestseller list and
Sure.
the New York Times list.
Sure.
Yeah.
My goal, I can tell you as an author, is to be on the New York Times bestseller list.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two reasons for that. One is I think it'd be cool. And two, because I read a lot of New York Times bestsellers that weren't that great. And so I feel like my product is better. And so I'm like, well, if they've reached it, then I should be that and above.
The bestseller list has never been a measure of quality.
Sure, that's fair. Fair.
It's the most popular kid in high school.
Sure. Sure. That's fair.
And you get that by being the quarterback of the football team.
Right. Don't even have to be a good one. Just
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So
the team can be 0-10, but you're the most popular kid.
Sure.
Yeah.
So do you have a job outside of writing, or is this is your gig?
I haven't had a regular job since I was the editor of Tokyo Journal in 1990.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. You probably don't miss that at all.
No.
Okay.
No, that was an interesting year.
Sure.
Yeah.
So where do you get your ideas for your books? Because you got quite you're tough to pigeonhole, like you said. So.
I've thought about that
Okay.
question. It's a tough question to answer.
Sure.
I think every writer is
You
different.
can totally tell me you don't know for that one.
But to digress a little bit, I write what I call my weekly screed every week.
Okay.
And that's an essay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't call it a blog because it's an essay in the sense that you have to go through it several times.
Okay.
You have to come up with a good idea. You have to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and
Sure.
so forth and so on. But to be a good essayist, you have to constantly keep thinking,
Sure.
and you have to think in ways that most people don't think. You have to look for a left turn or a right turn
Sure.
from the conventional view.
Okay.
But that's essentially where you get your ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constantly thinking about ways to express yourself, and you're going to be putting yourself on stage in front of people,
Sure.
People are going to be reading you and judging you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be not only careful and professional
Mm-hmm.
in how you write, but you have to write in ways that make other people think, that surprise them, that
Sure.
startle them.
Sure. So the essays, you publish them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually part of my marketing. I send my weekly screed out to about 320 people.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Who most of whom I know.
Okay.
Every week, and they are and many of them send my essays to other people.
Oh, very
that
cool.
They know.
Okay.
So that's not a spectacular marketing device, but
Sure.
I also have a blog site.
Okay.
And I whenever I write my weekly screed, I put it on my blog site, and then I move that over to Facebook.
Okay.
And put a little introduction on Facebook, so
Sure.
that people on Facebook can see it.
Mm-hmm.
And then on two different Facebook sites.
Okay.
So that's another way of spreading the word.
Sure.
But to get back to your original question, it's the constant seeking of startling ways
Sure.
to think about normal things
Okay.
that give you ideas for stories.
Can you give some examples of the recent past?
Actually, one that I remember vividly
Mm-hmm.
was I was on the subway in Tokyo,
Okay.
and I saw a girl wearing a sports jacket for a team.
Okay.
And it said on the back, "Fighting Spirits."
Okay.
fighting spirit with an S at the end of it.
Okay.
And
Plural?
I thought, like what? Like combative ghosts?
Okay. All right.
But that gave me an idea for a book, for a novel that actually I'm probably never going to publish, at least in the form that it's in. But it was a basketball ghost story
Okay. All right.
about a basketball player who encounters a ghost
Okay.
who'd been haunting that gym since the 1940s.
Okay. Was this a good ghost? Or
He was a good ghost.
a
Yes.
friendly ghost?
He was a good ghost, but he was also there was a darker spirit that was haunting
Okay.
the good ghost.
Yin and yang,
So-
sure.
But
All right.
just from that little bit of twisted English
Sure.
in Japan, fighting spirits rather
Sure.
than fighting spirit.
Sure.
I thought about what if what about a ghost? It's actually a variation on the idea was, of course, Field of Dreams,
Sure.
which was actually W.P. Kinsala's novel, Shoeless Joe.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Which is one of
I always joke about that movie with my business planning class because
All
I'm
right.
like, don't do this.
yeah.
If
right.
you build it without marketing, they will not come.
They won't come.
They
right,
will
yeah.
laugh at you. You
Right.
better be doing some marketing.
Right. Yeah. But his marketing was the ghosts were going out and bringing people in from,
Sure.
from elsewhere.
All right,
So
all right.
if you have ghosts to do your marketing for you,
Sure. They seem to have the time.
it's okay. Right.
Nice.
Yeah. So this particular, the thing is that you get these little clues from around you.
Sure.
And if you write them down fast enough, because they disappear in
Very quickly.
in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you can build things from it.
Mm-hmm.
Also, also stories emerge from very mundane things.
Sure.
You get to be my age. You've known a lot of people.
Sure.
You've encountered and you know a little bit about life.
Mm-hmm.
And you can say, well, what if we had this guy
Mm-hmm.
in this situation, this ordinary guy in this ordinary situation,
Sure.
and one remarkable thing or startling thing or dangerous thing occurs to him,
Sure.
and from there you can build a whole story.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're building on what you've been through in life. You're
Sure.
building on people you've known and things you've done.
Sure.
Yeah.
So are the essays typically stories, like on the verge of fiction stories?
Some of them are political critiques. Some of them are like touchy feely stuff about
Okay.
about the mood or the atmosphere in a certain place at a certain time.
Okay.
Many of them are humorous.
Sure.
Let's see now. I can
Let me go through my book here. Quick.
a lot of them are memory pieces.
Okay.
Yeah. For instance, one here entitled "Landfills I Have Known, B&Es I've Committed,"
Okay.
and this is about kids
Okay.
who love dumps
Okay.
and who see an empty building and will find any way to get into that empty building.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. Kids maybe kids are too busy with video games now.
They're watching videos of people unwrapping toys.
But breaking into empty buildings is a lot more fun.
Sure. You could certainly argue. I would argue that watching paint dry would be more fun than that. Those videos of people opening up toys. But clearly, I am in the minority there. What have you learned about yourself in the business climate for newly published books in the new venture that you have going on?
What have I learned about myself? Wow. I think I'm still in the process of doing that. I think probably what I've learned about myself. All right, yeah, I do have an answer for that. I ran a weekly newspaper for 7 years in Massachusetts.
Okay.
I learned how easy it is to make a mistake.
Very easy.
And how, for instance, every week you're putting out a newspaper with I don't know, probably 10,000 words
Sure.
in it. That's 10,000 chances for mistakes.
Sure.
Not counting the punctuation.
Right. Spacing, advertising,
and,
blah, blah, blah.
and all
Sure.
the layout and so forth, the
Sure.
pictures. So you learn the importance of being really careful, and you learn the consequences
Sure.
of making mistakes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so when I moved to now that I'm a publisher, I've learned that I am that all that experience, being a newspaper guy and a journalist and a publisher or a magazine editor also.
Sure.
I've learned that was really valuable experience.
Okay.
Because I'm very, very careful about getting everything right.
Sure.
Making sure that every book is clean.
Sure.
As can be.
Sure.
It's and bear in mind that most writers are a kind of naturally slovenly.
I would love to think that you're wrong, but when I look at my desk, you're totally right.
But you're busy getting your creative vision
Sure.
down, and so you're not worried that much about the details and the commas and
Sure.
and the apostrophes and so forth. But by doing this job, all the jobs by myself. Plus, the part that I didn't mention is the copy editor.
Okay. I was going to ask you about editing.
I have a great copy editor. She lives in New York. She worked with my wife's company for a long time. She's freelancing now.
Okay.
She doesn't charge as much as she should.
All right.
But she is an absolute bear about that. I mean, it takes a certain kind of mind and discipline.
Sure.
To be a good copy editor. I've always admired good copy editors, and Diana Sheben is her name, and she's just terrific.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I gave her, for instance, a clean manuscript for, I think it was summer of '68. It was a clean manuscript as far as I could tell.
Sure.
She found 712 things to challenge.
Oh yeah.
Many of them I meant to be there, but she picked up every anomaly
Sure.
in the manuscript and made sure that either I agreed with it or disagreed with it. And her additional quality is that she's a good thinker. So if she sees something written that clunks with her, she'll mention it and suggest a change.
Sure.
And she only did that 3 or 4 times in each of my manuscripts, but each time she was right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But so having her plus my background, what I've learned is that I am I'm very, very disciplined about how these things come out.
Sure.
And I know it's not my nature.
Nice. So, what is some advice that you would give to someone that was considering being an author? Outside of don't do it.
Outside of don't do it, yeah. Outside of don't expect to make money at it. I would say write something. Write something fairly extensive. Leave it alone for 6 months, and then go back and read it again.
Sure.
And if it doesn't interest you, or if it doesn't make you laugh, you have work to do.
Sure.
You might not be a
or
writer.
cry, whatever emotion you're going for.
You might
right?
not be a writer after all.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. But the other advice, the most sensible advice, is to tell people not to write fiction.
Sure.
To write nonfiction, because that sells.
Interesting. Okay.
And to find as tight a niche as you possibly can, as you have done.
Sure.
Yeah. Business nonfiction is. The great thing about business nonfiction is that whatever idea you come up with, although it might die in 6 months, it will come back to life in 3 years, and it will be the newest thing on the face of the earth. Because business readers have a really, really short attention span.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That's fair, because I wrote the book specifically to be absorbed in chunks. It wasn't meant to be.
Right.
Wasn't meant to sit down and read it over the course of 6 hours.
One of the great business writers, of course, you know this, was Peter Drucker.
Sure.
But he wrote the same book about every 5 years, and
Most business writers do.
And every time it was a bestseller, and it shocked the business world because it was so inventive and unexpected. But he had written the same book 5 years before.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say best. He might have been a bestseller, but in my opinion, there are certain authors that triggered me saying that I could do this better, and he might be on that
he
list.
was he was certainly one of the most successful.
Sure, definitely.
And quotable and thought provoking.
Sure. Yeah. Definitely. And there's good stuff there. It's just to say, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
It's the same stuff, just in a different pan.
Right.
And they call it a magical new cake kind of thing.
Right.
I just read this book.
20
times ago. So I know exactly what you mean.
You could write Freakonomics every 5 years forever, right?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. It's interesting that you point this out because I actually make fun of them, the authors that do this in my book.
Yeah.
Because
they actually plagiarized me. That's an interesting thing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe not so nice.
In my sumo book, I analyzed cheating in sumo.
Okay.
I'm the only one who ever did that.
Okay.
They have an analysis of cheating in sumo, which is an exact lift.
Sure.
From my book.
I might have read about that. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Clever. Well, I tell you what, Benjamin.
I wrote them a letter saying that they'd done that. They didn't answer back.
Sure.
And having a war with their publishers would have been more expensive for me than them, and I would have lost anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Just give all that you need is a blurb, right? Just say, hey, this is put me in the references or whatever you have there. Well, awesome, Benjamin. This has been great. It's been informative, and congratulations on the new business. Congratulations on April 1st. All these books are going to hit the market. Will they be hitting the market soft cover, hardcover? Smoke Signals, audiobook.
They're all in paperback.
Okay.
They all cost either $20 or $15.
Okay.
They're available, as I said, on my website.
Sure. Remind us again.
www.lastkidbooks.com.
Lastkidbooks.com. Awesome.
As of April 1st, any place online that you go for books, you'll find them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggles, stories, and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Coming to you from the Sun Prairie Community Studios, underwritten by Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kateman, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for small businesses across the country on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs in all stages of their business on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, The Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur in all of us, available on Amazon and wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, David Benjamin, author of The Life and Times of the Last Kid Picked, as well as 6 other books, soon to be 7, 8 other books?
At least 7 in print and by the end of the year.
Holy cow, that's a lot of books. That's awesome. Congratulations. Find us airing on 103.5 Wednesdays at 1 p.m., Sundays at 2 p.m., as well as at sunprairiemediacenter.com. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link, found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. I want you to stay awesome, and if you do nothing else, enjoy your business.